Hi, I'm Victoria, co-organizer of Metabolic Health Summit 2022. Thank you so much for joining me today. I actually have the amazing opportunity to introduce you to our platinum partners at Readout Health, or Biosense, as you might know, which is a breath ketone testing device that's truly changing the game. And today I'm actually speaking with the president and CEO, Jim Howard, along with their new chief medical officer, Dr. Naomi Parella. And they're really doing some incredible work, both on the research front, in technology, and furthering the field of metabolic health as a whole. So Jim Howard is actually a 28-year health tech veteran. And as I mentioned, the CEO of Readout Health in St. Louis. Now, this is a breath biomarker research company that actually built Biosense. And Biosense is used by researchers, clinics, and self-care consumers focused on lipid metabolism therapies for health span and disease reversal. His venture firm, Biogenerator Ventures, incubated the Biosense project in 2019 and helped with the collaborative research agreement with Washington University School of Medicine. Now, Dr. Naomi Parella has an incredible background herself. She's actually a practicing physician and double board certified in family medicine and obesity medicine. She's the chief of lifestyle and medicine for the Rush University system and the medical director of Rush's multiple weight loss and lifestyle medicine clinics in the Chicagoland area. She's an associate professor for the Department of Family Medicine and the Department of Surgery at Rush University Medical School. She's a nationally recognized expert and frequent invited speaker, educator, and strategist for universities, hospitals, communities, and businesses like United Airlines. Dr. Parella applies therapies designed to achieve nutritional ketosis to treat insulin resistance and the foundations of chronic disease and cognitive decline. Most recently, she joined Readout Health as the chief medical officer, as I mentioned. And between Dr. Parella and Jim Howard, I mean, this team is doing such incredible work in our space, and it is my absolute honor to be able to introduce you to them today. Dr. Naomi Parella, Jim Howard, thank you so much for joining me today on this live. I so appreciate you guys being here. I'm really excited to dive into our conversation today.
Hello.
We're excited too.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so why don't we start with you, Dr. Parella? You've got such an incredible background. You're a family physician, you're an obesity medicine specialist, you are the medical director at Rush University's multiple weight loss and lifestyle medicine clinics. You've got a wealth of experience when it comes to the weight management side of things and getting patients to stick to those weight management programs. So let's talk a little bit more about that experience. And now you're at Readout Health as their chief medical officer, which Readout Health, for those who are watching, is the company that came out with Biosense, the amazing breath ketone device. But tell us a little bit about your experience and how now you're blending that into Biosense with the team over there.
Sure. Thank you, Victoria. So I grew up in Japan with the understanding that food can be medicine. And I've really spent my lifetime seeking effective ways to engage and activate people. And what happened along the way is I started seeing that what I had been taught was not working. So back in college, I was driving out into rural communities, teaching aerobic dancing, doing personal training in an elementary school gymnasium for the women in the rural farming communities because they didn't have a gym. So this was even before the videos, exercise videos.
Awesome.
So the classes got so big, they moved into high school gymnasium. And while I was leading those exercise classes in the gymnasiums, people came to me and said, hey, I want to lose weight. And so I tell them, eat less, exercise more, which is essentially what we've all been trained. And shockingly, my long-term success with weight loss with this group was 0%. I couldn't believe it. So I asked everybody, what am I doing wrong? And they would say, well, your participants are probably not working out enough, and they are probably not being honest about what they're actually eating. And as I was reflecting, I thought, well, they're definitely working out because I'm teaching the classes and I see them showing up and sweating. So could it be that 100% of my students were misrepresenting their foods, or is it more likely that my instructions sucked? Well, we know the answer to that, right? So that's when I had to really open my mind. And focusing on insulin has completely changed the outcomes, and the success of the multiple Rush clinics and patients are a direct result of that. So the patients actually have taught me well over the years, and you really can't argue with successful patients. So over the past almost 5 years that I've been at Rush, we have now expanded our clinics to service 6 different communities. So we have 6 clinical sites, and we're expanding to 2 more. What's really cool with this opportunity is that we have clinics in different neighborhoods, and we are able to see diverse individuals who in turn teach us, right, how to support their success. And it turns out that, as many in this audience will already know, you can improve your health regardless of your zip code or how much money you have. So it's about having the right information and the right tools, and everyone is entitled to that success. So carb restriction works, fasting works, exercise and good sleep are boosters. And it's really about the hormones like insulin and understanding insulin resistance. So what has been fabulous is, since I discovered Biosense, the company Readout and the device Biosense, I have been able to now have that one tool that I've been missing that patients can use outside of my clinical time with them to be wildly successful with their goals for reversing disease, for treating disease, preventing disease. And it doesn't matter about the zip code. It doesn't matter where they come from. So as Chief Medical Officer for Readout and the Biosense device, I'm honored to have the opportunity to integrate what I've learned from serving diverse communities to reduce the biases and misinformation that are barriers to engagement, and to accelerate and simplify the adoption of what actually works for as many people as possible.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. And it's really exciting that you're now on this team, and just from your background with weight management programs and what you guys have recently launched, which I'm very excited to dive into today, because it's very applicable to what you've done in the past there, Dr. Parella. So thank you for sharing that. And Jim, your background is equally as impressive. You've got like 28 years under your belt as a med tech executive, among a slew of other things. So tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to supporting sort of the initial creation of Readout, and now as your role as president and CEO.
So my background started out in the pharmaceutical industry and transitioned into technology and delivery systems and clinical decision support. Right around 2000, developing apps and solutions on Blackberries, believe it or not, back at the time. And then ultimately led to respiratory diagnostic, short time with CareFusion until we were acquired. And then that led to engagement with Washington University and doing some tech transfer work with a venture firm. So that's how this whole project started. The project came to us from Jim McCarter, who was at Verta at the time, looking for some technology, and he had found it, and I got hooked up with that technology. So we invested in the company. I left to run the project, which has turned into a company, Readout Health. And we launched this right at Metabolic Health Summit 2 years ago, month before COVID. So
right. That was amazing.
Yeah. So
not the COVID part. Right.
So we re-engineered through that, navigated through that. And really this year, after 2 years of significant feedback, we did an 8,000 person pilot, a lot of clinics, pharmaceutical partnerships and things like that. Now we've kind of launched the programs to support that. And that's where we are today. And this is our St. Louis.
Yes, which I've had the pleasure of actually being at and seeing you guys in action out there. It's been so exciting to see how this has evolved, even just in the last, it's hard to believe it's been 2 years since you guys launched, which is crazy. And it's just been really exciting to see the innovation that's coming out, just how you guys are making this possible for people in such a big way, and making it exciting for patients too, to be able to continuously track their progress, I think is incredible. So let's kind of dive into that a little bit, because for those who might not be familiar with the Biosense device, this is a clinical grade breath ketone testing device that actually measures breath acetone, which is really fascinating. And you guys have a special way that you do that. So Jim, if you'd like to talk a little bit more about the technology itself and why testing is so critical in our understanding our overall metabolic health.
Right. So, there's 3 ketones. BHB is pretty widely used. That's a storage ketone. That's through capillary venous. we really focus on the derivative of what is metabolized by the mitochondria, and which is acetoacetate, which combusts into acetone. So we're that direct reflection of acetoacetate. So we decided to concentrate on that so that you can have a measurement all day as your metabolism changes. So we're very focused on whatever it is that gets you into a fat oxidative state. Doesn't matter to us. Ketogenic, fasting, caloric restrictive, doesn't matter. We're focused on showing the video of that patient's engagement throughout the day with food and exercise. So I'm doing this with my hands because that's the area under the curve. And the bottom line is we eat, our metabolism changes, our ketone levels, just like glucose, change. You have to measure multiple times per day. And we patented a way that you can do that with breath through fractionating. Long story short, we just measure the specific part of your breath, not your entire breath. And that's the patent. So we did that, and that was a couple of years ago. And then we've really been focused on building the programs behind there. So it's not just a biomarker, but rather a biomarker enabled solution that's actually based on fact, not guesses. And that's where we are, closing that feedback loop.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's so critical, which we'll definitely dive into here in just a minute. But I want to talk a little bit about some of the weight loss and health focus programs that you guys just launched. This is super exciting because this really allows people to set individualized goals and within a sort of subcategories, if you will, from everything from losing weight to reducing inflammation to improving health span to increasing your metabolic flexibility. I mean, you guys have really covered the bases with this. Yeah. So I'd love to kind of learn or dive into this a little bit more with people and understand how these programs work, who can get involved. I mean, this is for just about everybody, consumers, clinics, researchers. So let's talk a little bit about that. Jim, if you want to kind of lead off and we'll go from there.
Sure. So, Biosense was really oriented toward a biohacker or a patient that really knows how to have a self-care protocol. But the programs allow us to expand into so many different areas. And the bottom line is the levels of fat oxidation are different for different targeted therapies. So, you might have just simple ketone production. Like I want to stop just using glucose as my fuel. I want to change my lifestyle and just start to produce like in 7 days, which is great for a clinic just to get somebody ready. And that's like a metabolic boost program. That's a program. And we'll tell you, hey, here are the number of times you need to measure. This is what you should do, X amount of exercise. And it gets more customizable over time. But this is our, the first version of this. Then you have your standard weight loss. Okay, you have metabolic flexibility as the third. Metabolic flexibility is really just going in and out of a ketotic state. And then it gets increasing. So weight loss is more like your moderate levels of fat oxidation, low to moderate, and then it increases to anti-inflammatory. And then at the very, very top would be health span, people like me that, regularly fast and try to get real high levels of ketones. So we're kind of hitting all the different marks. And for a clinic or a researcher, it's, hey, this is what we do. Maybe it's epilepsy, which is really high levels of ketone. Most of them are going to be probably 90% of clinic use would be low levels of fat oxidation. And that's where you have pretty strong impact in weight loss, type 2 diabetes reversal. And, I would say that that's our kind of primary focus is metabolic disorders, but we have tons of research in other areas. And these programs start to put some structure around that. And then now we're adding the medical curriculum, and Dr. Parella can comment on that.
Yeah, thanks. So what's really exciting is when we think about our lives, there's times when you're with your healthcare provider, but the majority of your life, you're not, right? Mm-hmm. So just because you get some recommendations and you're super inspired at that moment, what we see in clinic is sometimes a day or two later, you may no longer be following what you intended to do. Or you might be doing something and you're not sure if you're on track or not. So it's all the majority of time of people's lives are outside of the office, of the clinical space. And that's when they need feedback. So if you think about an athlete, athletes want feedback as soon as possible with their action, right? Action and give me feedback. Right. They'll watch recordings right after, not 10 years later, right? Not 3 months later. They want to see the results right away. So what Biosense does is it offers people that feedback loop, and it offers feedback that you can actually then act on right away. So you are constantly learning and leveling up versus what we now would have to do without those kinds of devices in the interim. I see somebody, I give them recommendations. Maybe they come back in about 3 months. A lot has happened in 3 months. And if they don't have a way of checking in with themselves and then getting some feedback, it's very hard. Now, I'd love to be available to all of my patients all of the time, 24/7, but unfortunately, that's not possible. But with the device and with the programs, they get that feedback. They get the validated instrument and the medically supervised instructions to help them achieve their goals. And again, what's so great is it's kind of like a choose your own adventure. You get to choose your goal, and then we'll help guide you.
Right.
Yeah, and the other thing is just that I think these clinics and researchers, they have the adherence transparency. So you just know, hey, here's your levels of adherence and levels of fat oxidation in the 1 month or 2 weeks or 1 week since I've seen that patient, and see if there's patterns in there, and then coach to that.
Right. Absolutely. I can see how amazing these programs are going to be within the research. You kind of have already developed these like structures or skeletons of like how this sort of should work and the platforms to do so. I mean, that's huge when it comes to, just taking a deep dive into research. I just know from my experience in working with a nonprofit involved in research, just the development of programs like that you guys have just done a phenomenal job in building that out so that, researchers don't even have to think maybe about that whole component, right?
Yeah,
So,
it's interesting. I mean, Victoria, I didn't mean to interrupt, that if you think about this, we knew in our clinical trial that if you take a measurement a day, regardless of what you do, it's about 50% off of a time-weighted average. So a single measurement just it's not going to be reflective of what's going on. We didn't realize that having a device like ours and ultimately CKM, when that comes out, those two, you're going to be able to do research that you could not have done before, because you're not going to ask somebody to prick their finger 3 times a day or 5 times a day to get the full story. So I think it's just opened the door for a lot of different types of research in areas outside of cardiometabolic disorders too, where that structure and repetitive testing that's non-invasive is super critical.
absolutely. And you guys are sort of talking about this like feedback loop, the closing the feedback loop, right? And Biosense just does that. And Dr. Parella, you kind of briefly touched on why that's so important, but you want to elaborate a little bit more on that, because that's such an important point, I think, when it comes to Biosense in sort of closing this loop and how critical that is for patients and also clinics. If you want to kind of further elaborate on that point.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, the closing that feedback loop, we're talking about giving feedback in the interim before there's long-term change. So for example, if I recommend somebody to reduce their carbohydrate intake, or they decide they are going to integrate in some intermittent fasting, that's fantastic. And I can ask them to monitor their weight on their scale, which won't change right away. So really hard to know, is this meal that I'm eating right now making a difference?
Right.
In the past, we could give people a continuous glucose monitor. We still can, but that really only helps us know what's happening with the sugar. So we can use that as a proxy to understand maybe somebody's in fat burning or not, but it doesn't really tell us enough information, right? And so we want to check the ketones around the clock to see the varieties that are available. So if you check 3 to 5 times a day, you have a really nice understanding of how effective are your behaviors towards your goals. And that feedback loop does not require, we're making it simple and easy, right? It doesn't require that you call your doctor's office and find out what you're supposed to do next. You actually can breathe into a device and get feedback right away. You see how well you're doing. Or if you decided you were going to deviate from your plan, you can see the impact that has. And I can tell one person to do one thing and another person to do the same exact thing, and they're going to have different outcomes.
Right.
So that's why the individual biomarker matters, right? You want to check for yourself. That's closing the feedback loop. Give me feedback now about me and my body. That's what we're doing with this device.
Talk about empowering the patient, right? I mean, you see that in real time as it's happening. And obviously, like you said, like you have these meetings with your physician, but just getting a hold of that information as a patient and immediate information is just so critical, I think. And furthering this entire movement really of metabolic health optimization, no matter what your goal is within those categories. Talk a little bit about how people can use this program, because it's really for anybody. Like, what are the next steps? What does that process look like in kind of signing up? You get a Biosense device. How do you kind of go about that?
Yeah, I can answer that. So the program development that we have for clinics, and this kind of extends to researchers too, for all the trials that we do are fairly similar, is that there still is a lot of instruction that needs to be done on actually tracking the state of fat metabolism, and aligning that to the goals of the clinic. So it's not just drop a device nap off. So we've got SOPs designed and developed for these different specific type of targeted areas. We have a clinical nutritionist that works with the clinics themselves to certify them. You can't just use the device on its own. So we certify the clinic, they've gone through this, they're nutritionists or nurse practitioners or whoever's touching the patient. They have a full understanding of how this works. And then it's off to the races, and we provide that ongoing support. So, what we find, there's a varying level of adherence, and we're surprised all the time by the adherence side of this, is that people that have been kind of disconnected to care models in the past can look at something, say they blow into a device multiple times per day and they get a number, and the higher the number, the better. It's not what they're used to. They're used to glucose, they're used to weight, things like that.
Right.
So there's an embedded motivation that we probably underestimated. Well, I know that we did. And that's in the home. So somebody all of a sudden is blowing 23s and 24s, which is high levels of ketosis. And that's just doing it on their own. That's just the gamification, within a cognitive behavioral therapy framework. And that's what we're really focused on, is embedding this, building the structure so that a clinician can say, this is great. I'll tweak it a little bit, take this home. Take it home, succeed at home. And when you come back, you're doing 90% of the work at home on your own with my direction.
Right.
That combination of those two are what I believe to be the secret sauce of long-term maintenance and adherence.
1,000%. Yeah. And you're kind of getting into sort of what you've learned, I think, in working with some of the clinics along the way, right? I mean, you guys have been working with clinics for the last 2 years, and you're constantly innovating in trying to continue to support clinics out there with, better information, better technology. So talk a little bit more about what you've learned in this process. I'm sure it's more than we can probably fit in one interview, I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, number one thing is, we have learned the hard way, to be honest with you, that you cannot encumber and put more responsibility on the clinic themselves. You can't throw more data at them. You can't you have to figure out a way where this can drop into their workflow and save time, save better outcomes, less time. It can't be more and more. And that's the payoff, that's the balance net. It can't be that. So how do you do this where you take what they want to do, take that structure, and then add that into the SOP documentation, and essentially just carry what they want to do outside of the office, as opposed to saying, hey, you need to do this, 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 and this. They already know. They know that a single measurement a day is wrong. Clinics know that. Consumers may not, but I mean, clinics know that you're going to get a false positive or a false negative in the morning. So we just have to build this to continue what they do all day, and then provide the monitoring that they can say, hey, what happens every Tuesday on poker night? Here's the results of 3 days.
Right.
Maybe we should do a monthly poker night or something like
right. Space it out a little.
Do something. But anyway, that's the type of stuff that we've learned, and we've learned a lot.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And the amazing thing is that as a company, you're really listening to that, and you're shifting, and you're constantly sort of evolving as the space evolves with the needs of the space, as well as the research too. That's, I think, one of the things I love most about Biosense and what you guys are doing. You're supporting this research that's critical we have to, it's like kind of like full circle. You have to support the research that's furthering the movement, and supporting the patients is this like giant circle, right? So you guys are involved in a variety of different important studies that are happening right now. What can you share in terms of what Biosense is involved in, and even in new areas of research? I mean, we're talking beyond just metabolic therapy for things like Alzheimer's, cancer, you name it, right? So if you can share a little bit more.
Yeah, I can share that. There's, I think we're very fortunate. We did the early clinical research. We have a patented program, so it's not, we know that can't be copied. So a breath device that's not ours can't be used. And
Yeah.
it's not gonna be used in a clinical research thing. So we're fortunate that we're the only non-invasive choice to track fat oxidation, as it changes throughout the day. So I think that at a specific level, you can use urine strokes, but they wouldn't use that in a trial.
Yeah.
So we've already got this advantage now. How do you make it work? And I think that we have more clinical trials going on right now. I believe that are outside of cardiometabolic, but we've got 2 pharma partnerships. One is already kicked off with Novartis. I can't share with what that drug is, but it's an amazing, it's an amazing drug that has impact, and we're right alongside that to assist with that. And I'm really excited about the long-term, possibility of that. I think 2 years ago we were so anti-medication. The bottom line is there are times where they're just going to work really well together, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
And sensing technology is critical to some of that development. We have another behavioral model pharma trial coming up, tracking sleep and tracking your ketone levels. And then we have a Parkinson's study in Europe that is grant dependent that I'm very bullish on. We have
That's exciting.
Alzheimer. We're already embedded in the Alzheimer's protocol with Dale Bredesen and Apollo Health, which has been a great partnership for us.
No, he's doing incredible work. He'll be speaking at MHS this
Yeah,
year
great,
again.
great. Yeah, so great team there. And then we have 2 current studies at Washington University, which is our primary collaborative partner. One of those is pancreatic cancer with an SGLT inhibitor. We have a potential type 1 diabetes study that would be grant dependent. That's obviously the flip side, checking DKA and things like that. So
Right.
we have a fasting study for fertility in Europe. We have we have all kinds of stuff going on, and it's an exciting area. Probably the best one of all though is Mark Cucuzzello. I know he speaks sometimes in West Virginia it's an obesity study for an underserved population there, and following obese adolescents for a year with a nutritionist in Biosense.
Wow.
And so we're supporting that study, and that's the first one that we've done in an underserved population, and we're ecstatic about that. We're more excited about this one and to see the impact we can have to that patient population than all the other ones.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, what you're going to learn from this, from that particular study, I think is going to be really, really helpful, especially within a child population is just so critical, I think. And why did you guys decide to get so heavily involved in research? I mean, I can understand, and we over at Metabolic Health Summit, obviously, like really understand like what it means to, and the importance of elevating this science, right? But as a company, where does research fit within sort of the overall organization structure?
If the research has to be done to really translate and expand into the clinical setting, in my opinion. I mean, Naomi can comment on that too, but that has to be done. The research community is a little bit different. They know that you have to have all day measurement. So it just kind of gets back to the core competency of you have to have the full story for research.
Yeah.
So we kind of got pulled into it, and we had the expertise to support it. And I guess, we know a lot about ketosis. We know a lot about ketones. We know a lot about breath biomarkers. We know what everyone else is doing to share best practices of what's real and data as opposed to guesses. So I think it's a critical part. The other part of this, though, is that it's quite frankly, nutritional ketosis or fat oxidative therapies, they have so much promise in these other areas, but there's just not structure. There's not structure. So you've got, somebody that has schizophrenia or heart failure, they're being put on these low carb diets. And the bottom line is you can't just go out and do that on your own. You need to have structure. So that starts with the research. Then it starts with the right tools, and then it starts with the right program built around those tools. And we're seeing some groups like in the oncology space really putting that structure together.
Yeah.
And we work with them, and they're stealth. But I mean, the bottom line is that you have to be really organized with all of this. And I think that we just so happen to be in the right place at the right time for that to some degree, and we're very interested in it. And that's the bottom line.
Absolutely. I mean, the science is so critical to support in order to make a change within standard of care and have metabolic-based therapies be a part of the conversation, hopefully upon diagnosis here soon in the near future. But the only way we're going to do that is by supporting research to get the evidence we need to make it happen, right? So as a physician, though, Dr. Parella, what do you think about that key piece? Because I don't think it's not very common that companies, even in the tech space, are as focused on the research as you guys are, which I think is so important.
Well, obviously, for adoption across multiple clinic, physicians want evidence, right? So to adopt and really take care of large numbers of people, you want to know you're doing right by your patients, and you want to have a safe and effective tool if you're going to direct patients towards it. So just like medications, we want to make sure it's been studied, researched. There's many levels of research, many years of research that goes into that before we feel comfortable prescribing a medication. And in the same way, when you prescribe nutritional therapies and you prescribe lifestyle therapies, they are effective. They're very powerful. So you want to have some studies out there so you know what to do and what to be concerned about, what to look for. Right. So it's one thing to know, okay, this is effective, but to be able to implement some behavior change, some lifestyle changes in patients' lives, there isn't enough time in a regular clinic visit to do everything you need to do. And you can't see the patients frequently enough to help reinforce behaviors and give feedback. So that's where it's helpful to have the evidence that shows the touch points matter, the ability to self-monitor matters. And here's a validated instrument that can help along the path.
Do you think, Naomi, I think you'd agree with this too, is that the bottom line is you go to MHS and you've got so many researchers out there and so many clinicians that maybe are at academic centers that want to do research. They don't necessarily know exactly how to put this all together, so if we can help them and just say, wait, this is 5 of the boxes checked that of the 10 that I need to do, and I got to go write the IRB, but I've got this protocol and the people and all this to support that, and they've done this before with others. The answer really is to the question of, will more research be done in advanced medicine using something that we all know that works? The answer is pretty clear, I think, to all of us, and that's, if we can just do that and others can do that that have technologies, all the better.
Yeah, you guys are really providing the tools and the programs now to make it easy to get this done, to further this, to gain momentum, to really do it. And, science takes time, but you guys are providing the technology to make that happen a lot faster. So thank you for that. And so, that brings me to my next question about what is next for Biosense. You guys just launched this program. I'm sure you have a big vision for where you want to go with this, but what's coming down the pipeline? What top secret information can you share of what's happening over at Biosense?
Well, I'd like to say we're announcing this in Santa Barbara next week, but it's not next week.
Right, I know. Coming soon.
Yeah, I think, I can just say that we're investing heavily into other areas and other markets, and we'll continue doing what we're doing. We're investing very, very heavily into building like clinical curriculum into what we currently have and expanding into other chronic diseases being treated with, nutritional interventions. And it's a little bit of continuing what we're doing. And then we've got some significant things in the hopper as it relates to engagement tools and engagement partnerships. And we'll happy to share that later on. Awesome. But it's going to be a great year for sure.
Absolutely. And you guys are going to be at Metabolic Health Summit 2022. You're a platinum partner for us. We couldn't be more thankful for that, because it does take a collaborative effort to move all of this forward. So people will actually get the amazing opportunity to meet you two in person. So if you're watching this, you're coming to MHS, you're actually going to get an opportunity to chat with Jim and Dr. Parella, and just the wealth of knowledge that you both have around technology, around, for you, Dr. Parella, around patient adherence. And, I just think you guys are really, last year, or not last year, gosh, 2020. I feel like it's the time has flown by. 2020, I know, like, the response that you guys got was huge in how you guys are really disrupting the space. You're changing the game with this technology in a big way because it offers something that's so easy to use by the patient, but is so empowering to them at the same time. So really excited for you guys to be back again with us this year. So I'd love to know, though, before we wrap up, in your opinion, why is this technology so critical in the future of our field as a whole, of metabolic health as a whole? And sort of what's your vision for the future? Maybe, Jim, you want to take that first, and then Dr. Parella, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think that when you look at the space that's expanding much faster than any of us anticipated, okay, that those of us on the technology side have a responsibility to keep up with that and continue to innovate for that, even though if they're not the major profit centers. We need to do that and continue to work on that. And I think that's why you see, my colleagues at Abbott coming out with CKM, which would be great for type 1 diabetes or schizophrenia, heart failure. And then we're the other non-invasive choice in that. So you've got these kind of two different technologies, one non-invasive, one invasive, different price points. It has to be done. And we're delighted to have those guys involved in all of this too, because it tells a story of what could be done, and
right.
So for us specifically, we just have to stay with that rising tide of in-home. I mean, there's a couple of things. There's with COVID, in-home testing is just blown up, number one.
Yeah.
And we've got to have tools to support that. And number two is just what's happening with nutritional interventions and fat oxidative therapies that our bodies were built to be in, that state. So I think that we have to continue to support and listen. It's just constant listening, react. And if we can continue to do that, we're in good shape.
Awesome. Yeah, I couldn't agree more there. Dr. Parella, what would you say to your technology specifically in being so critical in moving this field forward, but also the field as a whole? What's your vision for the future of metabolic health?
Yeah, I think with awareness and education, more and more people are actually coming to the office asking questions about this already, right? So now we have with social media and all these wonderful educated individuals who are sharing their success stories. People are inspired. They want to make change. They want to get better. Now we know you can reverse diseases. I mean, this is like a new time, right? So I really believe with this device, we can accelerate and simplify that adoption. Whether you're a clinician who might not really know enough to create your own program and just need the support, whether you're a researcher that wants to share this incredible knowledge with as many people as possible and give the data and provide that reassurance that what we're doing is effective and much easier. Or whether you're the consumer, the patient, right, who wants to take this on and you're like, I don't have resources around me. My doc might not know about this, or I might not have access to a bunch of these resources, but this can put the power in my own hand and I can go and run with this and I can make change and I can be successful. And then I can teach others and inspire others about what's possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, the future is certainly bright, I would say, in terms of this field is just, even through the course of the pandemic has just evolved so much and so much of, people are wanting this information. They're wanting technologies like this to kind of put that power, like you said, back into their own hands at home. And you guys are doing just that. So it's really exciting we feel like we can't even keep up with Biosense over there. You guys are moving and shaking so fast and listening so closely to what the space wants. So thank you guys for the important work that you're doing over there. And where are all the places for, whether you're a clinician, researcher, somebody just wanting to optimize health, where can people find you guys? Anything else you'd like to add on this?
Yeah. Either come to 2940 Locust Street right here, or you can go to our website.
Right. You might have people show up. Be careful over there.
Anybody, you can, it's mybiosense.com, or, for clinical studies and things, just reach out to me directly, jim@readouthealth.com. And Naomi and I will pop on a call, see what you have in mind. So that's one way to do it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, you're easily accessible, it sounds like, and willing to talk to people, willing to help, and doing some big things in this space. So thank you guys both for taking the time out today to chat with me all about the technology, where you guys have come from, where you're headed. Naomi, it's so great that you're a part of the team. I just know that together, you guys are going to do so much and have already done so much in this space. So thank you both for joining me today. And thank you for all watching. You can certainly, like I said, meet Jim and Dr. Parella at Metabolic Health Summit 2022. Go to metabolichealthsummit.com. There are still some tickets available. Make sure you snag them before they sell out. The hotel venue is actually just about sold out. So, but we do have another block there. And yeah, I'm so excited to see you guys here in May. It's right around the corner. And thank you guys for jumping on today.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much,
much,
Victoria.
Awesome. We'll see you guys soon in Santa Barbara, right across from the beach. So
See
I'll look
everybody
forward to it. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.